This is number 2 from Fernando Sor's Op.60 studies. Those are 25 progressive studies that kind of start off a little bit easier and then go to more advanced. Follow the lesson for free as always on my channel. But if you're interested, I do have an edition of all 25 of the Op.60 studies, and there's a link for that in the description. Number 2 is similar to number 1. The notation is relatively simple, and yet if you play it very legato and you sustain your notes well, it can sound quite rich and rewarding. A couple of things to talk about, just a little bit of phrasing ideas, and then we'll just talk about sustaining the notes a bit and also some right-hand fingering concepts. So number 2, we're in 3/4 time, but instead of feeling it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, you know, like that, I tend to just feel it 1 beat per bar. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It's just a much more gentle feel, and I think you'll be able to glide through the music much more easily. So you're just kind of feeling 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you don't want to get locked down in feeling every beat. And in, like a lot of classical era music, the phrasing is very symmetrical. Here it's in 4-bar phrases, and you end up with a cadence at the end of the set of phrases. So you really just, you're focusing on your legato playing, and you're also sustaining the notes a little bit. Most of the bars create chords. So like you have a C major chord here. G7 chord here, and a C chord, and you know it's creating chords, so you want to sustain the notes. You don't want to play it one note at a time, but instead hold those notes down, let them ring to create chords within the bar. All the left-hand fingering is marked, so just follow my left-hand fingering throughout. In terms of right-hand fingering, I think the main thing to discuss here is that you want to alternate fingers as much as possible. And really, like, you have 2 types of textures in classical guitar music. You have scale passages and arpeggios. So when you have arpeggios, often we'll use different fingers, like the first bar, for example, I, A, M. But then when there's some melodic passages, we'll just alternate I, M. So you can kind of separate it when you have notes going across the strings and they're creating chords. We can throw in different fingers for each string. And when we have more like scale-like passages, we will alternate our fingers as much as possible. The only other thing to think about is that when there's a jump between the strings from, for example, the 3rd string to the 1st string, we will often go like I, A, even in a scale style passage, just because that's ergonomically more comfortable and our fingers are right there. So for the most part, I'm just alternating I, M, but I'll show you where I play some A's. A, there, because it's a arpeggio style passage, M, I, A, M, I, M. And usually on the bass strings, I'll use my thumb, even if I'm breaking the rules a little bit there with sometimes with the melody. In this particular case, it's only really in bar like 19 that you're throwing in a thumb on a bass string, even though it's still part of the normal passage. Bar 25, same thing. Even though you're only going across 2 strings, I do use 3 fingers. I go I, M, A. So bar 25, I, M, A, I, M, A, I, A, M. And then you can just alternate I, M for the passage. So do you get the idea? It's kind of like you're just really applying those 2 types of textures and then utilizing the fingers to do that. And at the very last few bars, he throws in a second voice. Kind of in, the studies are progressive, so he'll start throwing in more at you as you progress through the studies. So you can just use your thumb on all those lower voices. And just try to alternate the fingers on the upper voice. You're mainly just trying to not repeat fingers as much as possible, except for the thumb when the thumb plays a voice on its own, of course. So I hope you enjoy that. In the next study, he starts to expand into some different techniques. So a lot of playing on the bass strings with I and M, for example.